What if I told you 2025 isn't just the year of sequels and superheroes? It's the year Hollywood finally got called out by something bigger. And first up on the cosmic cleanup list, Disney. Yeah, the same Disney that once gave us wonder, dreams, and timeless stories that raised generations, just handed us a $350 million disaster dressed up like a fairy tale. A remake so tone-deaf, so creatively bankrupt, that it may go down in history as the biggest cinematic self-own of the decade. They called it bold. Audiences called it unwatchable. And Snow White didn't just flop, it detonated. This wasn't a stumble. This was a full-speed faceplant into a pile of glitter, bad writing, and studio delusion. Across the country, theaters were empty. Seats sat untouched. And the message was loud and clear. No one showed up. Because no one believed in this version of the story. Let's break it down. Disney didn't just make this movie once. They reshot it twice. A rare and costly move that signals behind-the-scenes chaos. They replaced the dwarfs, who are some of the most iconic characters in Disney history, with awkward CGI stand-ins that looked like rejected background characters from a forgotten Pixar short. They cut the prince, banned True Love, and scrapped classic songs like Someday My Prince Will Come, all in the name of modernizing the fairy tale. But let's be honest, they didn't modernize anything. They sanitized, politicized, and hollowed it out until it barely resembled the story people knew and loved. The end result? A movie that felt less like a story and more like a slideshow presentation at a corporate diversity seminar. And for their trouble, they got steamrolled in week 2 by Jason Statham, a man who has 2 acting modes, grunt and punch. That's not just a box office flop, that's a studio-wide embarrassment. This film, backed by 2 major stars, Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot, and pushed with a massive $350 million production and marketing budget, couldn't survive 2 weekends. Because while Disney was yelling girl boss from the rooftops, audiences were quietly saying hard pass. And then came the press tour. Rachel Zegler, the face of this new Snow White, didn't just fail to promote the film, she actively trashed it. She took shots at the original movie, at its values, at the concept of a prince saving anyone. Every soundbite felt less like enthusiasm and more like a TikTok rant dressed up as a TED Talk. She didn't celebrate the role, she scolded the fans who cared about it. And when the backlash hit, she doubled down with a smugness that turned disinterest into hostility. She didn't just alienate fans, she gaslit them, then acted shocked when they didn't clap. And you know what? People didn't clap. They walked out, they stayed home, and they said, "We're done." Now let's talk about the story. Disney said they were reimagining a classic tale. What they actually delivered was a soulless, algorithm-built checklist of modern cliches. Not because the cast was diverse. That's never the issue. But because the story was disconnected, emotionally flat, and deeply out of touch. It didn't feel magical. It felt manufactured. Snow White wasn't a princess with dreams. She was a bitter, dismissive, overly modern archetype who felt more like a cynical influencer than a heroine. And the 7 dwarfs? Not only were they erased and replaced with CGI magical creatures, the very real community those characters once represented is now threatening legal action. Disney claimed to be inclusive and ended up erasing the very people they said they were trying to support. That's not progress, that's PR spin, and people saw right through it. Even Disney execs have quietly admitted this film was a disaster. Budgets were blurred, PR efforts imploded, and reviews were split, with half the critics sounding like they were reviewing a brand deal, not a film. So here's the uncomfortable truth. Snow White didn't bomb because it was different. It bombed because it had no heart. This wasn't about love, courage, or transformation. It was about delivering a lecture wrapped in a costume change. Classic Disney stories moved us because they meant something. They tapped into deep human emotions: wonder, hope, romance, joy, redemption. Modern Disney? It tells you why you're wrong for wanting that. They don't cast dreamers anymore. They cast influencers. They don't write timeless stories. They write statements. Statements they hope will go viral for all the right reasons, but often crash and burn for all the wrong ones. And maybe the saddest part? They forgot what made people fall in love with Disney in the first place. It wasn't politics, it wasn't hashtags, it was heart. It was the idea that no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, you could dream, you could believe, You could be more. This version of Snow White didn't offer belief. It offered bitterness. And now, what used to be the Magic Kingdom feels more like the Tragic Kingdom. So here's some free advice, not just for Disney, but for every studio chasing social media clout over storytelling. Stop chasing trends. Start chasing truth. Go back to what works. Go back to character, to emotion, to meaning. Because if this was your happily ever after, then the audience has spoken loud and clear. No thanks. We're good without the fairy dust.